Hi, I'm Kelly Morgan, reporting with the Whetstone. I interviewed English professor Dr. Harry Maxson about his interesting background and love for teaching. And what's your favorite class to teach here?
Creative writing.
Why?
Because that's my field. I started publishing when I was about 18 years old, and I've published 13 books and probably about 600 or 700 poems, stories, articles, essays, interviews, book reviews, and so forth in magazines and anthologies.
Can you give me a few titles of your well-known published books?
Probably the one that many people would know was a book called On the Sonnets of Robert Frost. I did the first and still the only book on Frost as a sonneteer. I had the idea when I was a graduate student. I wanted to write about the sonnets, or I hoped somebody else would do it so I wouldn't have to write the book. But no one did it, and it kind of sat in the back of my head for about 20 years. And I finally said, well, no one's going to write this book, so you better sit down and do it.
What year was that published in?
That was published in '97. That's 12 years ago. That's hard to believe, but it's still in print, and it's still selling. So I was hoping to get a conversation going about Frost as a sonneteer, because he's very important to 20th century poetry, of course, but to sonnet writing in particular. So I wanted to get a conversation going. So far, it's worked. And there's more people writing and talking about it now, and I've actually become a footnote in several books.
What drew your interest to Robert Frost?
Frost was the first modern poet that I ever read. Back when I was about 13 or so, I started reading poetry seriously, and someone gave me a paperback copy of Frost, and I carried that thing around in my back pocket for years, just wore it out, and just loved his work, and continued to read it over the years, and eventually wanted to write about it, and that was really about the only thing that no one had ever written about, was taking Frost seriously as a sonneteer. So that's what attracted me. Was, it was just he had a voice, he had a subject matter that I cared about. Because when I was growing up, the area that I lived in central Jersey was still very rural. Of course, today it's another New York City, but back then it still was a lot of farms and woods and open land. So, and that's what Frost wrote a lot about.
Yeah.
So it attracted me.
All right, I'll get back to some general questions.
Sure.
What's your birth date?
April 10th, 1950.
And where did you grow up?
Central Jersey,
What
Monmouth
town?
County.
Okay.
A little town called Navesink.
Can you spell it for me?
Navesink. It was the local Indian tribe. We're the Navesink Indians.
Okay.
They were part of the Lenni Lenape.
How long did you live there for?
Till I was 22. And then I went to Virginia to do my master's. And after the master's, I went to Hattiesburg, Mississippi to work on my PhD. And then I gave up on that after a year and went back to Jersey and taught there for 20 years.
Where did you teach back in Jersey?
Monmouth University.
Okay.
And that's where I did my undergraduate work too, but it was Monmouth College back then, but it's since become a university.
Did you get your PhD there?
No, actually, I got divorced and remarried in the process, and after a couple of years, my second wife said to me, why don't you go back and finish that PhD? Because I was kind of struggling. I was teaching and I was doing other things to make money in Jersey. It was just getting too expensive. So I called them, because usually graduate credits die after 7 years, and it had been 20. I called them and I said, can I come back? They said, well, what have you been doing for 20 years? I said, I've been teaching and writing and publishing books. They said, well, you've stayed in your field, so sure, come on back. And they reactivated everything for me. And so I got my PhD when I was 43 years old.
At Monmouth University?
At University of Southern Mississippi.
Oh, okay.
Went back there, yeah.
Can you break down for me your degrees, what years, and what you got them in?
Yep. I have a bachelor's, Bachelor of Arts in English. That was 1972. I have a...
Where was that at? I'm sorry.
Monmouth University.
Okay.
Monmouth University. It is Monmouth University these days. The MA in English at Hollins University. That's in Virginia.
Okay.
No, it's Hollins.
Hollins?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's 1973.
Okay.
And then the PhD in English / creative writing. From University of Southern Mississippi. And that was in 1993.
And how old were you in 1993, you said?
43.
And how about in 73?
In 73, I was 23.
Okay. And 22 and 73?
Yep.
Okay.
And my first book came out in 76. It's a collection of poems called Turning the Wood.
Okay. What was your motive to go to college?
You know, I didn't decide to go to college until last minute. Actually, it sounds so cliche, but I wanted to join a circus. I didn't want to be a performer. I wanted to be one of the guys that set up the tents.
Yeah?
Yeah, I just wanted to travel. I've always loved to travel. I was either going to do that or I was going to go up and live in New York City and just, you know, do whatever. And then at the last minute, I had been accepted to 2 or 3 colleges. So Monmouth was close to home, and I had a band at the time, and I wanted to be able to continue playing with them. So I just decided to commute. So I went to Monmouth.
What struck your interest to work in a circus?
I don't honestly know. I just remember it was this weird fascination I had with circus people when I was in high school. And I watched them pitch the tents a couple of times because it was a circus that used to come through the area. And I'd go and watch them, and I thought, that'd be fun to do. But then I also wanted to be a truck driver. It's a long ways from you know, a PhD in creative writing and writing poetry. Because I don't think you'd want to be a truck driver and tell anybody that you wrote poetry. Not back in the early 70s anyway. They probably wouldn't have gone down too well.
Do you regret not working with the circus or
No.
traveling or anything?
No. Not at all.